Welcome back, focused learners. We're jumping right into today's explainer, The Price of 100 Sons, Crime, Consequence, and Karma. So we're taking a massive deep dive into this incredibly intense excerpt from the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata. And let me tell you, this text doesn't just tell a story. It literally forces us to grapple with some heavy questions about ethical responsibility. We're going to unpack a shocking royal sacrifice, look at this desperate pursuit of legacy, and see how this ancient narrative takes a gruesome act and transforms it into a timeless, high-stakes courtroom debate about karma. Seriously, get ready, because the moral complexities we're about to get into are absolutely fascinating.
Okay, let's dive into this. We are undone. Just imagine the pure, torturing grief behind those words. It completely establishes the tragic stakes of our story right from the jump. These are the agonizing cries of desperate mothers, totally smitten with grief, trying to forcibly snatch away a child from a horrifying fate. It's visceral, it's immediate, and it pulls us right into the absolute darkest moment of this ancient text. But, to understand how we actually arrived at this heart-wrenching scene, we have to look at the guy who set this whole tragedy into motion. And that brings us to King Somaka. The core motivation driving this entire story was his totally desperate desire for heirs. Somaka wanted a number of sons so badly that he made a fateful and ultimately devastating promise to his family priest, a Brahmana. He basically told him, whatever is to be performed, do precisely as it may be necessary. He literally gave his priest a blank check, promising to do absolutely whatever was prescribed just to achieve his goal. It's a classic setup for tragedy, right? You've got ambition completely blinding a leader to the potential moral cost of his desires.
What the priest actually prescribed leads us to a deeply chilling sequence of events. The chilling sacrifice of Jantu. The sacrifice centers around this young boy named Jantu, and despite his mother's weeping in a completely piteous way and trying to catch hold of him, the priest forcibly pulls Jantu by his right hand. The text uses this really striking comparison here, noting that the mothers screamed in agony like female ospreys. The priest then kills the son, and he makes a burnt offering of his fat. And here is where the supernatural element totally kicks in. As the agonized mothers smell the scent of the offering, they suddenly swoon, literally falling to the ground. And in that exact moment, miraculously, all of these lovely women become with child.
And exactly 10 months after that horrifying ritual, King Somaka received his reward. 100. A full century of sons was born to the king, begotten on all those women. It's a staggering, almost unimaginable return on his gruesome investment. The scale of this mythological reward is just massive, completely matching the extreme nature of the sacrifice he sanctioned in the first place.
But now, we get this really strange twist of fate, the rebirth of Jantu. The sacrificed son, Jantu, is actually reborn to his former mother, which makes him the absolute eldest of this brand new century of sons. But fascinatingly, this reborn Jantu becomes the most beloved to all the women, way more so than their own newly born biological sons. And to top it off, he's considered entirely superior in merit to the other 99.
Now, to physically signify this miraculous rebirth, the text gives us a highly specific, super fascinating visual detail. The reborn Jantu carries a distinctive mark of gold located right on his back. It's basically a divine stamp. It serves as a constant visual reminder to the king and the court of exactly who this boy is, where he came from, and of course, the terrible price that was initially paid to bring this entire generation of princes into the world.
But of course, as we know with these ancient texts, earthly rewards eventually give way to spiritual accounting. Sometime later, both the family priest and King Somaka depart this life. When Somaka crosses over, he makes an afterlife discovery that leaves him utterly bewildered. He looks and finds his officiating priest exceedingly scorched with fire, literally being grilled in a terrible hell. But Somaka himself? The king is entirely free. He's totally prepared to enter the blessed regions of heaven. Think about that for a second. The man who ordered the child sacrifice is saved, while the priest who performed it burns.
Stunned by this scene, King Somaka demands answers, and to get them he has to confront Dharmaraja. He is the ultimate arbiter of justice in this realm, the god who metes out punishments to departed souls. Basically, he is the ultimate objective judge of karma, evaluating the spiritual ledger of every single human life. When Somaka asks why his priest is being tortured, arguing that the man is burning solely on his account, Dharmaraja steps in and delivers a rigid, totally unyielding ruling.
Dharmaraja replies unequivocally, saying, "One cannot enjoy or suffer for another person's acts. O best of speakers, these are the fruits of thy acts. See it here." So the absolute crucial point is that Dharmaraja views karma as strictly individual and deeply literal. The priest is burning in a terrible hell simply because he was the one whose hands physically dragged the boy, and who physically officiated the grim sacrifice. The physical act of the murder belongs to the priest. Therefore, the karmic punishment of the fire belongs solely to him.
Which brings us to a profound ethical dilemma. Is a king's deed identical to his priest's? I really want you to think about this for a second. Who actually bears the true spiritual cost of an action? The leader who gives the ultimate command, or the subordinate who physically executes that grim order? Dharmaraja says they are entirely separate. But King Somaka violently disagrees, and his response right here is exactly what elevates this story from a simple myth into a brilliant, timeless ethical debate. This conflict builds into King Somaka's ultimate courtroom-style rebuttal. Somaka flat out refuses the blessed regions. He issues an ultimatum, demanding to dwell in the company of his priest, whether that is up in the abode of the gods or down in the fires of hell. He explicitly argues to Dharmaraja that his deed, as the king who gave the order, is completely identical to the deed done by the priest who executed it. Because the action was shared in its purpose, Somaka argues that the fruit of that evil deed absolutely must be the same for both of them. He is demanding shared responsibility for the crime.
Faced with this unyielding logic and the king's profound loyalty, Dharmaraja actually accepts Somaka's argument. He issues a new verdict. Tasting the fruit together, Dharmaraja decrees that if it is truly the king's wish, he must taste the fiery fruit of that act with the priest for the exact same period of time. Only after he is burned in hell for his shared responsibility will he be allowed to go to the blessed regions.
And this brings the complete arc of King Somaka's spiritual journey into focus. We start with the sin, officiating the extreme sacrifice of Jantu. That leads directly to the earthly reward, the miraculous birth of a century of sons. Then comes the afterlife hellfire, with Somaka loyally choosing to burn alongside his priest to share that heavy karmic burden. And finally, the liberation. The text tells us that the lotus-eyed king did exactly as prescribed. He and the priest suffered together until their sins were completely worked off, and they were set free and ascended to heaven together. Because the king was fond of his priest and shared everything with him, both the blame and the punishment, he ultimately won all the blessings he entitled himself to.
Before the excerpt ends, the narrator points out the physical location where this story was told, a lovely hermitage, and leaves us with this specific number, 6. We are told that anyone who spends 6 nights at this very hermitage, controlling their passions and freeing themselves from excitement, will attain those exact same blessed regions. It's a direct invitation to the reader to practice self-control, which is in stark contrast to the desperate, unchecked desires that caused King Somaka to sacrifice his son in the first place.
This explainer has taken us from a horrific ritual all the way to a high-stakes courtroom in the afterlife, and it's all centered around a concept that is still incredibly relevant today, the chain of command, and who ultimately takes the fall. King Somaka ordered an atrocity, for sure, but his redeeming quality was his absolute refusal to let his subordinates suffer the consequences alone. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to really ponder. Would you choose to burn for someone who sinned on your behalf? It's a heavy thought about modern leadership and loyalty, wrapped up perfectly in an ancient myth. Thank you so much for learning with me today, Focus Learners. Keep analyzing, keep questioning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.